Was there an Adam? Was there an Eve? Or did we evolve from what we conceived?
And you're listening to WBAI New York, 99.5 FM and WBAI.org. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Pete Seeger.
Sometimes the world can get you down, with war and injustice everywhere. But you do all you can do, and to help you make it through, there's nothing like a song you can share. Just pick some words people can repeat to add some rhythm, tap your feet. Find a part that makes your voice sound sweet. Now sing like Pete. Great silver river in the sun, deep blue under stars when daylight ends. Keep our waters pure and clear, don't let trash or toxins near. Then go out on a sail with your friends and pick some words people can repeat to add some rhythm, tap your feet. Find a part that makes your voice sound sweet. Now sing like Pete. Changing the world's a major job. Takes more than some people at the top. But through struggle, work, and art, We'll each do one small part. Keep singing and don't ever stop. Just pick some words people can repeat to add some rhythm. Tap your feet. Find a part that makes your voice sound sweet. Now sing, sing like Pete. Pick some words people can repeat to add some rhythm. Tap your feet. Find a part that makes your voice sound sweet. Now sing, sing like Pete.
And that was the Ray Korona band, Sing Like Pete. And of course, the Pete he's talking about is Pete Seeger, and we opened it up with My Rainbow Race. It was real hard choosing which Pete Seeger song to open up this show with. And on the phone, we have two guests, both singers, both songwriters, both friends of Pete Seeger's. And Ray, since that was your song, let's start with you.
Okay. The Ray Korona band usually is Barry Kornhauser, Owen Davidson, Gina Talamsa, Ivis, and Sharon Abreu, along with myself. And on that particular song, we were featuring Robin Greenstein on vocals and banjo, and Jim Gahn added that little extra tenor part about singing like Pete.
You got to have banjo on a Pete song.
Yeah, and Pete also always liked to have a big range of singers, so we had to import in a special kind of singer that's capable of doing opera when he wants to. Writing that song was a little tricky for me because we had reached a point in Pete's life where people were trying to memorialize his achievements in songs, and he really didn't like that too much. He wanted the focus to be on the people and not on him. And so I had to sort of work around it, and since he was telling everybody to sing along, there wasn't anything wrong with me doing that. And then since he was going and doing this environmental work and this other work, why couldn't I say nice things about that without mentioning him? So I kind of got away with it. With great trepidation, I sang it in a program with him, and he was just smiling, no feedback. So so he didn't take it off of YouTube or anything else. Anyway, you want to say who the other guest is?
Yeah, Charlie King, one of my favorite folk people, and I have no idea how many of your concerts I went to in the 70s and 80s.
Neither do I.
And I ended up at one of those concerts on the back of one of your albums, the vaguely reminiscent of the 60s album.
Oh, right. Oh, you mean your picture is there?
I'm in the corral.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
Where along with 100 other people.
Occasion.
You know, it's such a small world that I was the MC for that live album.
I don't even remember that.
I must have known it, but I don't remember that.
Well, it's like the 60s, you know.
Yeah. If you were there, if you remember you weren't there. Yeah. That was at the Washington Square Church, when the Washington Square Church was still a church.
That's right. Now it's a luxury condo.
Oh. Wow, there's progress for you.
It is right across the street from one of the very first solar thermal arrays in the city.
Well, there's some justice there.
I guess so. I guess we'll start with you, Charlie. Tell us some Pete Seeger stories.
Oh, well, I suppose I should be prepared for that.
Yeah, I guess.
I think probably a good place to start would be the place where Ray and I came together, which is the People's Music Network, which when I first got to it and when Pete first got to it, and I imagine when Ray got there too, it was called Songs of Freedom and Struggle. Were you in on that?
Oh, yeah.
Floor?
Oh, yeah.
And we'd gone for a couple of years trying to bring together political, topical songwriters, singers, archivists, DJs, and the like. And Pete had kind of kept us at arm's length, and I would send him invitations and flyers, and he would blue pencil them and send them back with helpful suggestions and corrections. And then after a couple of years of that, he decided to join us, and he basically made the network work. Once Pete was on board, we knew that when we had a concert of a Friday night that the place would be packed because Pete was on the bill. We knew that people would be signing up for our annual gatherings because they could go and they could chop onions with Pete in the kitchen. And I've been thinking recently that Pete was so accessible and available to all of us, and always made a point of rolling up his sleeves and doing the simplest or the dirtiest job around. You kind of forget just what a giant he was in terms of American cultural history. A favorite story that I have from People's Music Weekends, Lucy Smith has a daughter, Topaz, who's quite a wonderful singer. I'm sorry, Lucy Murphy. I'm being corrected by my fact checker here at home. Lucy Murphy. Her daughter, Topaz, was very active in our network. Both Lucy and Topaz were. And Topaz got up to lead a song one time to get everyone in the group singing, maybe 150 people in the room. And she was singing some old gospel song. I can't remember what, but undoubtedly with new freedom verses coming out of the civil rights movement. And Pete was in the kitchen washing dishes or something like that, and he heard the song and he got really excited. He came out into the room and he walked up to the front and he joined Topaz at the front of the room, leading people, getting harmonies and counterpoints going. And a kid, I don't know, maybe 16 years old, who had been working in the kitchen, came out, and I was at the back of the hall just glowing, to see these people, these two generations working together. Pete was easily old enough to be Topaz's great-grandfather, and the kid is standing next to me, and he's beaming too, and I look at him, and he looks at me, and he says, "Who's that old guy singing with Topaz?" That was how he blended in, but when you sit down and you pick up his book, Where Have All the Flowers Gone, you read it cover to cover, you realize how much he's created musically, politically, culturally. I'm really, I'm kind of in awe recently just thinking about all that he stands for, all that he accomplished. How did he decide to be that kind of a person? How did he decide that he was a global citizen and pack up his family and travel all over the world? How did he decide he could save the Hudson River? It's I don't know if either of you have any insights into that. How does somebody realize that they're called to that level of greatness? I think most of us just pay the bills and try to do good work when we have the opportunity. But the idea of changing the world, which is what Pete did, that's a whole nother level of commitment.
Ray?
Well, we sing about that a lot, and there are many songs that try to inspire people to greatness. You can do it if you really want to, and so forth. And I think that what Pete did is kind of take those songs seriously. And he just went out and he'd try one thing. If it didn't work, he'd try something else. And when people got in his way, he managed to work around it and just keep going. One of my favorite Pete stories illustrates that, and that was the one where he had been blacklisted, of course, by the American Activities Committee and their friends in Washington, and couldn't really do regular jobs and couldn't really continue with the Weavers, as I understood it. So he went out on the road alone, and most of the biographies just mention that, he played in some schools and so forth. But one of the main things he did that just, is a lesson to, I think, anybody that wants to just find a way to keep going no matter how bad the cards are stacked against you, was that he would travel around. He'd go to a little town, And he said at the time, local radio station, just serving that town, would be a pretty small potatoes kind of operation, probably didn't even have a receptionist. So he would first check around, find the firehouse, and rent the firehouse for that evening for maybe $5, and then he would go over and get to the station, wherever it was, usually walk in. The DJ was on the air or playing a record, and when he was able to talk, he would say, I'm Pete Seeger from the Weavers, and I just thought I might stop by and say hello to people on the radio, if that's okay with you, sing a song. And usually the guy would be beside himself. Wow, I have this great celebrity on my program. And so Pete would get on, and the first thing he would do, he said, was he'd start telling people about he might play the banjo underneath, but he'd tell people about the firehouse and how if you come on down, it's free, but if you could throw in $1 or $2, it would really help keep me going and pay the bill for the firehouse. And we're going to have a dance, and I'm going to sing some songs, and here's a couple examples. And he starts singing songs and talking like that. And usually within not very long, the phone would start ringing off the hook. The DJ would pick it up, and there would be somebody saying words that you're not allowed to say on the radio to the DJ on the phone about, get that guy off the air, your job is over, how could you possibly let that communist, talk? And of course, at that point, it didn't matter at all. By the evening, the firehouse was packed with everybody in town. Pete had a great time. He made enough money to keep going, had a lot of people to inspire and play tunes for, and join him, I'm sure, many times in a little band, and move on to the next. And I just thought that was such a good example of the human spirit and of how it worked for Pete and how Pete made it work for him.
I'm thinking of a story about when he went to Spain. He was invited to perform there during Francisco Franco's fascist regime. And they gave him a list of the songs that he wasn't allowed to sing. And he looked at the list and he goes, well, this kind of looks like my set list. So he went on stage and he said, well, I'm not allowed to sing all my songs, but there's nothing wrong with you singing them, so I'll just play and you sing along. And so he had the entire concert hall of many tens of thousands of people singing his songs, and he never sang one word. He just played his banjo.
He was a very clever fellow, when you think about it. Like Clever John, he would always find that there was some workaround, some way to do something, and it would be all the more powerful because it showed this initiative and determination.
And also with me in the studio is the president of New York City Friends of Clearwater, Donna Stein.
One of my favorite people.
Oh, and you're one of my favorite people, and I'm sorry you're not here tonight. Stories about Pete are as legendary as Pete is. Pete had an unusual ability to make everybody who met him think that they had their own personal relationship with him. He touched so many people's lives, and we're all just so grateful. We're having there's a tribute to Pete almost every weekend. We're having a tribute to Pete this coming Friday at the Judson Memorial Church. It's going to be our third Friday of the month. New York City Friends of Clearwater gathers at Judson, but this is going to be all about Pete. Pete and Toshi, actually. It's a celebration of the life and accomplishments of Pete and Toshi.
Glad you mentioned Toshi, because I think people kind of forget about Pete's right arm, which was his wife, Toshi.
They were true partners.
And there is a song on Seeds, Volume 3, Songs of Pete Seeger, that is about her and sung by her grandson. And so let me play that next.
My grandma, she can make a soup with a little of this and that. She can feed the whole sloop group with a little of this and that. Stone soup, you know the story. Stone soup, who needs the glory? But with Grandma's cooking, no need to worry. Just a little of this and that. Grandma likes to make a garden grow with a little of this and that. But she likes to have the ground just so with a little of this and that. Not too loose, not too firm. In the spring it's all gotta be turned. In the fall lots of compost to feed the worms. Just a little of this and that. Grandma knows we can build a future with a little of this and that. And a few arguments never hurt you with a little of this and that. True, this world's in a hell of a fix. Some say oil and water don't mix, but they don't know a salad maker's tricks with a little of this and that. The world to come may be like a song with a little of this and that. To make everybody want to sing along with a little of this and that. A little dissonance ain't no sin. A little skylarking to give us all a grin. Who knows, but God's got a plan for the people to win with a little of this and that. My grandma, she can make a soup with a little of this and that. She can feed the whole sloop group with a little of this and that. Stone soup, you know the story. Stone soup, who needs the glory? But with Grandma's cooking, no need to worry. Just a little of this and that.
And a little of this and that with Tao Rodriguez Seeger, Toshi and Pete's grandson, or one of their grandchildren. And I mean, Charlie, you mentioned feeding people, and Donna mentioned Toshi, so I had to play that song.
Yeah, it was a great thing to go to Pete and Toshi's just before the Strawberry Festival, when Toshi was getting the, I don't know what you would call it, the bouquet garni ready for stone soup. She would take whole heads of garlic. She wouldn't even peel them, just feed them into the food processor. Onions, unpeeled, everything went in there, and she had this incredible mash of herbs and spices and root vegetables that would become the kind of stock for stone soup at the Strawberry Festival.
And at her memorial at on the west side, we had stone soup afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. What part of the entrance to the memorial was you brought some vegetables with you, and so each of the pots had a little bit different vegetable combinations. It was great. So it's like, hey, you can make soup out of stones, and the legend has it, and it just multiplies where people just come and join, and that's very much what Clearwater is all about is community and bringing together in food and music. And every sloop club and every gathering of Clearwater is all about potluck food and folk music and community and activism, because Pete was all about social justice and environmental justice, and we at the sloop clubs and all the organizations that came out of Pete's work is all about justice.
At the Hudson Revival, there's an activist area. There's just tables and tables of activists, mostly environmental issues, but a lot of other things as well. And it was sometime in the early 80s, and the Shadow Lions had a table there. And it was it had rained Saturday night. And it rains almost one of the days of almost every Hudson River Revival, it seemed. And so here's all the volunteers Sunday morning going to the tables, and we're dragging, and we're just like, oh man, is volunteering for this worth it? Are we really going to save the world? And we're trying to find what got damaged in the rain, and where is everything, and what did the wind do, and oh my God. and everybody is just, shoulders down and everything else. And then in the distance, I see off to my left, there's Pete Seeger flying a kite. and he's just flying a kite, right? And he's running in our direction. And as he approaches the activist area, the people on the far left of the row see him, and you could see their body language and expressions. Everything changes, and all of a sudden they have energy. And as Pete runs down the field, everybody one by one started getting all brightened just watching Pete Seeger fly a kite. And I didn't know him at the time. I got to know him a little bit later. And so I asked him, do you remember that? Were you doing that on purpose? And he said, no, he wasn't doing that on purpose. He just likes to fly kites.
He just likes to have fun.
I would just never forget that.
It's such a lightness of being. He was the happiest when he was in the woods. He was the happiest when he was on stage. He was the happiest when he saw the people working together. He knew how to bring people together, and
especially with kids.
He loved kids.
At the Strawberry Festival up in Beacon every June, he'd do a concert. It seemed like only 15 minutes. It was probably longer at the adult stage. But with the kids, he'd play for an hour or two. He just loved playing for the kids. The
children are the future. They really are. There's so many adults in the Clearwater organization that started off as at Pete's feet singing music. I mean, yeah.
And he also did some wonderful challenges to songwriters. And I have heard this story over and over again, and I know both of you have a story to go with it, where Pete Seeger would give you a newspaper article and something and say, Woody Guthrie would have written a song about this. You should write a song about it. And both of you have one of those, don't you?
I know I do, yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't.
Get ahead of me.
The front page of the Wall Street Journal with a picture of a woman named Yanira Marino and a story about how she had fled El Salvador because the government was trying to kill her for teaching people how to read and write, and how she settled in Southern California and got a job in a sweatshop with a whole bunch of other immigrants and people that they like to push around, and how she organized that shop. And she got them to affiliate with the laborers union, and then the laborers union saw a good thing when it came through the door, and they ended up hiring her, and she was out organizing poultry workers in Morganton, North Carolina, and she was I've seen her at a number of different international labor forums. She's just got a lot of heart and soul. And Pete used those very words. He said, Charlie, Woody would have written a song about this woman. Why don't you do it? Very intimidating task, but brought out the best in me, I think.
And Ray, you have one just like that.
Well, I was asked to come and sing for these women in Sayreville, New Jersey, who had done something pretty wonderful. They had been stranded in their town because they had young children in the school system that they had to care for, but they wanted to do some kind of anti-war activism. So they thought about it, and they decided that it would be a good idea if children in the schools in Sayreville would give toys to children in schools or other young children in Iraq and in Afghanistan. And they thought that probably the military would go along with it because they would think it'd be good public relations. But actually, they were pretty clever, and they thought that a couple of very good things would come out of it. One would be that maybe there would be a few of the young, really 19-year-old soldiers that would connect to the families that they gave the toys to the kids to, and that they might sort of become more interested in the people there and soften up the atmosphere and so forth. And a lot of good bonding occurred, including some of the soldiers coming back and speaking against the war. The other thing was that they thought that the children in the school could really understand the plight of children that were stuck in a war zone, and that maybe this would help create peacemakers of the future. So at the time, I was doing a few shows with Pete. So I told him, sometime we had time, I told him this story, and he said the proverbial words, you know, if Woody were around, Woody would write a ballad about that. And I said, well, Pete, you know, you were Woody's friend. Why don't you write a ballad about it? So I don't think he was used to that, but anyway,
Charlie didn't say that.
He said, well, we've got to get working on this together right now. So then he says, which exit of the turnpike is this Sayreville on? And I said, well, it's not really on the turnpike. That doesn't matter. What's the closest exit of the turnpike? So when you hear the song, you'll hear this as sort of how it opens about the turnpike exit, and that's how that got in there. But we worked on the song, and it also told me something interesting about Pete that many people might not guess, and that is because of his strong musical education, he wasn't just a folk singer. I mean, he was a folk singer, which is great, but he also was a scholar in terms of music and very interested in what music could do in terms of its notation and jazz and all kinds of things. So syncopation, how you emphasize different phrases and words in music, was something that he was thinking about at the time. So what he wanted to do is, instead of us singing back and forth what we were working on, we constantly just passed each other or mailed each other sheet music that had the updates based on our discussions and notes for the song. And it took several months to complete it. And part of the process was that Pete constantly was changing the syncopation and deciding, well, this should be emphasized. No, that should be emphasized. So finally, when we got it pretty much together in terms of lyrics and music that we both liked, he said, well, you know, I can live with this syncopation now. How about you? I don't want to rush you. Can you sign off on it? I said, Pete, I think it's just fine. You know? This was a real long process. So anyway, that was kind of interesting too, I thought, in terms of some insight into how his mind worked. So that's mine on the song for order.
And that was Ray Korona of the Ray Korona Band. You're listening to WBAI New York, 99.5 FM and WBAI.org. I'm Ken Gale, and this is an extended version of Ecologic as a tribute to Pete Seeger, and I want to thank the Out FM Collective for giving me their time this week, and then they're taking my time next week. And I'll play both of those songs back to back. But first,
you know, Pete was a great supporter of everything that was good. One of the things that Pete supported was WBAI. There's a lot of
one of the last concerts he did was for WBAI.
Yeah, there's a lot of love for Pete in this station, rightly so. He it's interesting because Pete, in his wisdom, would always do as many things for free as possible. We had all the potlucks, so everybody joined in together. Our meetings are always free of all of our sister organizations, as much free as possible. But he did realize that things cost, venues cost, printing cost. We need to show our love for Pete by showing our love for all of the many, many things that he supported. And that means that we have to support WBAI. It doesn't take that much to be a WBAI buddy. You can call that pledge line, pledge $5 a week. Would it?
A month.
A month. A week would be good too.
Yeah. $20 a month.
Think about your love for Pete right now. Dedicate a pledge to WBAI, $5 a month. Put it on your wall. This is $5 a month for Pete.
Well, it'll actually be done for you. It'll be taken right out of your credit card or your bank account, whichever you designate.
Call 212-209-2950 and pledge now. Pledge during this Ecologic show, because environmental justice was a huge part of what Pete was about. There wouldn't be a clean river, a clean Hudson River. More than 40 years ago, when Pete saw that the Hudson River was filthy.
Yeah,
and that
the river he swam in when he was a boy.
Exactly. You couldn't walk 4 blocks away from it without it stinking. Guess why there was factories all up and down the Hudson? Because it stunk. The factories made it dirty, and therefore there was no riverfront. Unfortunately, a byproduct of Pete helping clean up the river is now they're building high-rise hotels on the river right now. High-rise.
Right, Donald Trump is making a lot of money off of Pete's activism.
Oh no, but we in order to support all things that are near and dear to you. Why are you listening to WBAI? It's important to support every organization that you come across. It's important to support New York City Friends of Clearwater. Please come on Friday and join New York City Friends of Clearwater. It's only $20. All right. I wouldn't know what to say. Oh, sorry. But we want you to, the most important thing right now is promoting your love for this radio station. It's not going to just happen because somebody else.
209-2950. 212-209-2950. Charlie and Ray, Charlie King and Ray Korona, our guests today, do songs about a lot of different political issues, and there is a show for every one of those issues on WBAI. And it's an overview. When you support WBAI, or if you support now, you're supporting Ecologic, but you can support all those different shows, all the different issues we cover, and producers communicating with each other and exchanging ideas and linking those issues together, so you realize that it's not a whole bunch of separate issues, it's all one thing. And it's all one radio station. We have a transmitter at the Empire State Building. They raised the price of the transmitter another $5,000. It is now $55,000 a month to broadcast 99.5 FM from the Empire State Building. Now the signal gets out to New Haven, it gets out to the Hamptons, it gets out to the Poconos and the Catskills, it gets down to Trenton and Toms River. It's a big signal. There's a lot of people who are able to listen to it, a lot of people who can get these messages. So your support of this station allows all those people to get the information that WBAI has to give every hour of every day. Even the music shows have an edge to them. And just as the public affairs shows have an arts edge to them, arts and public affairs are one here at WBAI. It's not like all music and the lowest common denominator stuff. It's not that, news where they boast about giving you everything in 20 minutes. It's like, well, there's a lot more than 20 minutes of stuff going on in the world, that they've taken the rest of it away. Well, WBAI is the rest of it. So we don't have commercials. No corporation would have us. And so we rely on your support. 212-209-2950.
For everyone who donates tonight during this show, or everyone who gives we will make sure that you get in the door. Friday is going to be very crowded, but we will keep rotating, and we'll get people to come into the Judson for the tribute to Pete. But we will get your name at the door and make sure that you get in VIP if you donate tonight. So that's a little incentive, right? Not a premium, because the show is the premium. The station is the premium.
$25 is a regular membership at BAI. But we do, if you want to give us more, we have what's called the WBAI Winter 2014 Pack. It's a T-shirt, a WBAI T-shirt, a hat, WBAI hat, and WBAI on a stick. It's hours and hours and hours of radio going back to the 60s. There's stuff from the 60s, from the 70s, stuff that's recent. And included on there are Pete Seeger interviews and music. Now, I haven't heard exactly what it is. I don't know if he's talking about the origin of the Clearwater, or he's talking about being blacklisted. I have no idea what he talks about. But it's Pete Seeger. It's his words. It's his music. It's going to be great. And so if you get the package, donate $150 and you will get the hat and the T-shirt and hours and hours and hours of radio. And definitely something that it's on a thumb drive or a flash drive, or all different things. If you have a computer that's I don't know, at least 5 years old or less, you'll have a USB port. You can plug it right in. Your computer will recognize the thumb drive as a hard drive, and you can play anything you want. It'll list all the things that are on it, and you choose and play what you want. And Charlie, have anything to add to all this?
From a sense of history and a sense of gratitude, that WBAI was the first place to ever broadcast any of the songs that I wrote. Before I ever had a chance to record a song, I would go into the studio whenever an issue came up in New York City, or a national issue when I was living on the Lower East Side. I'd write a song about it. I'd go into WBAI. I'd sit down at a microphone. They'd record it, and they'd play it that night. So
wow.
BAI was sort of my entree into broadcast music, and I'm always grateful for that, for its accessibility and its excellent taste.
Ray?
Well, one of the things that is important to remember, too, is that while the Internet gives us all sorts of resources, and we learn a lot about issues, and sometimes many of us think that that's good enough, WBAI adds a lot more that's really important, and that is the local activities, actions, rallies, perspectives, insights, a chance to hear more details actually spoken, and often in situations where listeners can call in and react to those things that are said. It gives you a real opportunity to be part of the community you really live in, way beyond what can happen on the computer alone. And so if we were left with only the Internet, I think we would suddenly realize that there was a very big gaping hole in our ability to be activists, to be informed citizens, and to be on top of issues that are really vitally important to us, and even what to do locally about national and world issues. So I think that's yet another reason to remember that it's really important to have WBAI there, not just other resources that may or may not be able to really give you what you need.
And you can't wait for the next person to do it. You're listening right now. Everybody's listening right now. Raise your hand. Okay. Okay. Every single one of you that just raised your hand needs to call in and make a pledge.
212-209-2950. 212-209-2950. $25 for regular membership, $150 for the Winter BAI pack, which will include some Pete Seeger interviews and music. And now let me get to those two songs that Ray Korona and Charlie King were talking about a little while ago. Two songs that were inspired. I don't know, is that the right word, or were they ordered?
Well, in the case of the one that I did, Pete actually wrote it with me, and then we recorded it together with the band.
And,
so you'll hear Pete's banjo on there, and you'll hear Pete singing along on the choruses, harmonizing.
And Charlie, what would you call it? Would you call it being ordered or inspired?
I like to think of it as being commissioned.
Commissioned. Okay, here's both songs. And the first one, it would be Toys for Peace with Ray Korona Band, and then Yanira Marino by Charlie King.
Take Take the turnpike through New Jersey, where it meets the Garden State. If you take exit 11 there, instead of going straight, you can visit Sayreville, where Diana, mother of two, saw what war can do to kids and did what she had to do. Because we have got to learn to live in peace someday. Maybe soldiers with toys, not guns, will find a better way. She said school children in Sayreville should give a toy or two to the children in Iraq, because they have so very few. Diane's neighbor Karen agreed. Soon a movement grew. Would the schools go along? What else could the school board do? Because we've got to learn to live in peace someday. Maybe soldiers with toys, not guns, will find a better way. So they set up big containers in the schools in Sayreville. It really was inspiring how quickly they would fill. Sarah brought her favorite doll. She told her not to cry. Soon she'd have a new best friend. She kissed that doll goodbye. Because we have got to learn to live in peace someday. Maybe soldiers with toys, not guns, will find a better way. The colonel said, let's do it. Yes, we will try your plan. Our soldiers can give out toys in Iraq and Afghanistan. Those soldiers love to meet the kids. They hope their visits increase. When you make a child smile, you build a bridge to peace. Because we have got to learn to live in peace someday. Maybe soldiers with toys, not guns, will find a better way. Take the turnpike through New Jersey, where it meets the Garden State. If you take exit 11 there, instead of going straight, you can visit Sayreville, where Diana, mother of two, saw what war can do to kids and did what she had to do.
They laugh and they tell us the unions are dead. Now it's every man for himself. Well, here in L.A. there's a new union made. I tell you folks, she's something else. Her name is Yanira, a daring Latina. She knows her strength and her worth. She's younger but wiser, a born organizer, the kind we call salt of the earth. Hey, Yanira, I just wanna sing your name. Yanira, daughter of El Salvador. Yanira, nothing ever will be the same. Que viva Yanira Merino. They had murdered her lover for speaking his mind. She ran north across Mexico. The death squad pursued her and did some things to her I don't think that you would want to know. But her spirit's unbroken, she's brave and outspoken, a steady, unquenchable flame. And she brought that fire to the sweatshop that hired her. They'll never forget her name. It's Yanira. I just wanna sing your name. Yanira, daughter of El Salvador. Yanira, nothing ever will be the same. Que viva Yanira Merino. 27 years old, 2 kids and no job. She hires on at a shrimp packing plant, where the boss, he was rude, the foreman was lewd, the perks and the wages were scant. But her bright smile would shine to her friends on the line. How long, good people, how long? They can pull any crime on us one at a time, but in union we are strong. Started with 5 in the dark on the sly, meeting outside the packing house wall. Then the 5 each brought 4 to show up at the door of the Laborers' Union Hall. 25 takes the game if they each take 3 names to sign up for a fight they can win. Oh, it snowballed in time till at last 89 voted yes, the union was in. Hey, Yanira, they all want to sing your name. Hey, viva Yanira Merino. Yanira is not packing shrimp anymore. She's packing the Union Hall. There is nobody braver for immigrant labor. The immigrant stands for us all. So to hell with a law that would padlock the door. Tell me, which side are you on? I couldn't be clearer. Let's side with Yanira and the courage to carry it on. Hey, Yanira, I just want to sing your name. Yanira, daughter of El Salvador. Yanira, nothing ever will be the same. Que viva Yanira Merino. Hey, Yanira, I just want to sing your name. Yanira, daughter of El Salvador. Yanira, nothing ever will be the same.
So that was Yanira Merino by Charlie King, and before that, Toys for Peace by the Ray Korona Band. And Charlie, I was singing her name for about 24 hours after I first heard that song. It's rather infectious.
Oh, good. Yeah, you
It
know,
makes it feel so good at the end, you know.
When I was listening to the song, one of the things that, thinking about what Yanira Merino had undergone before she finally was able to get her feet on the ground in the United States and begin organizing the workplace where she lived, reminded me of Pete's sense of the seriousness of people's lives, especially people's lives who are impacted in other parts of the world by our lifestyle and our government here in this country. And, you know, there's sort of like always the danger of this, you might call it a Martin Luther King effect, where someone dies and pretty quickly you begin to think of them cosmetically as, you know, a saintly person, a a wonderful, friendly person, somebody who always made you feel good. Pete didn't always make me feel good. Pete was he liked to challenge you. He liked to try to get you to do your best. He didn't always compliment you or thank you. He always encouraged you, but he didn't necessarily make a big deal of it when you did what you were supposed to do. And I've seen him shake with fury on a stage reading a poem about the death of Victor Jara. You know, he really took things very seriously. You know, he confronted the American empire in many different ways and was on, you know, blacklists for a very good reason. He stood in opposition to the policies of his government and stood up and went to jail on a number of different occasions, and very controversial occasions. And he would look at a situation and decide what side of the issue he came down on, and then he would stand for it. And he could be quite intimidating at times. So it's really good for me to remember the fierce Pete Seeger, as well as the kind and gentle man who loved to sing for children. And I'm actually glad I got that in, because I'm going to have to part company in a few minutes, but I want to hear what Ray has to say about his song, too.
We know Ray has a story about Pete's fierceness. Pete was always so humble and never wanted to put himself above everything.
Yeah.
He wanted to make himself just one of the singers. If there were a group of people singing, he wanted to be one of those people singing. He didn't want people putting them in front. Ray, why don't you tell you a story about when Pete was angry at you?
Yeah, there was one time when Pete got angry at me. When we first met, I think one of the reasons we became friends is that we had an intellectual argument, which was fine. But later, when we were actually doing that song, the Toys for Peace song, there was a People's Music Network gathering, and they have a round robin there, which is a situation where people who want to can sign their name on a list and get to go up and sing a song for the group. So since we had just recently finished the song and Pete was there, I said, Pete, you know, it's okay with me either way, but would you be interested in, you know, presenting the song to the People's Music Network? And he said, oh, yeah, he'd like to do that. Go ahead and put our names down. So thinking that I would be the biggest clown in the world if I wrote on this list Ray Korona and Pete Seeger, you know, I wrote Pete Seeger and Ray Korona. So Pete noticed this, because later they hang the list up on the wall, and then they call people up to the stage. And I was really kind of shocked, because he was really mad at me. He kept muttering under his breath, you know, you asked me to play with you, and you should have your name first. I shouldn't be first just because you think I'm a celebrity, and all this kind of stuff. And he really was very, very serious about the idea that there should be real democracy in singing and in people's opinions and so forth, and that somebody shouldn't be always be given, you know, the bigger print or the first name on the flyer or whatever it is, just because they're more well known.
Now,
and of course,
before we lose Charlie, I want to mention to him that, and to the listeners, that a song that I play often here on Ecologic is one of yours from Bright Morning Star, which is the Solar Carol.
Oh, yeah, I certainly didn't write that song, but it is one that we continue to sing to this day. We sing it when Bright Morning Star gets together.
Yeah.
Karen Brando and I sing it often, and
The Raging Grannies sing it every December.
And Kim and Reggie Harris have recorded it, so it's gone a long ways. But yeah, it's a wonderful song.
And when I play it, I will always get a call or an email. What is that song? I gotta know.
That's a great song. Well, I'm a great lover of parodies. I wish I'd written that one, but I think it was Adam Oster who wrote it for the Clamshell Alliance, and Bright Morning Star had a little songwriting session. We came up with a few extra verses, but yeah, it's a wonderful song to sing.
Okay, well, let me take a little break. It's 8 o'clock. You're listening to WBAI New York, 99.5 FM, and WBAI.org. And you can become a BAI buddy by calling 212-209-2950. You can become a member of the station for $25. You can become a BAI buddy for $5 a month, 10, 100, a million, whatever you want. And you can, for $150, you get a premium of a WBAI hat, a WBAI T-shirt, and hours and hours of programming on a flash drive. So there's a wonderful incentive to give a bit extra. And in that $150 stick is some interviews and music by Pete Seeger. So it's also relevant to what we're doing on this show. And so there are so many songs that I brought with me by Pete, and it's a little after 8 o'clock. Ecologic would be coming on right now, but we've been on since 7 o'clock because we traded with Out FM. They'll be on in this slot next week. And so I have to do at least one more environmental song, and I just really like this one a lot.
Before you play it, Ken, I just wanted to say good night and thank you. A real pleasure to be with you. Honored to be here talking about Pete. Love to hear his music.
All right. Well, thank you, Charlie King.
Good night.
And you have a website?
Good night, Charlie. Good night, Ray. Yeah, just charlieking.org.
Well, that's easy.
Yeah.
Bye, Charlie.
Bye-bye. Good luck on the program for Pete this weekend. That's a wonderful thing. We had a great one in Amherst on Sunday night. 600 people turned out for a 400-seat room, so you know what it's like to have a crowd.
A little worried about that.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Good night, all.
Okay. Good night, Charlie. And here's Sailing Up My Dirty Stream.
Sailing up my dirty stream, still I love it, and I'll keep the dream that someday, though maybe not this year, my Hudson River will once again run clear. It's always high in the mountains of the north, crystal clear and icy trickles forth. We're just a few floating wrappers of chewing gum. We're pirates and hunters aboard of things to come. Let them souls by 1,000 polished hands. But got to find your solid biggest hands. What's up, big boy? Hey, everywhere. Down the valley, one building for a stream. Find my Hudson so convenient place to dream. And this little city said, let's do it, let's go free. They say the water's clear, but we live on the river here. Halfway between the mountains and the sea, tacking to and fro for the spot returns to me. Sailing up my dirty stream, but nothing can but a dream that someday, though maybe not this year, my Hudson River and my country will run clear.
And that was Sailing Up My Dirty Stream, one of Pete's newer songs. And it's actually a great illustration of something I always say about songwriters, which is they can say in just a couple minutes what it would take somebody who does speeches like me quite a bit to do. And there's an example right on that song. When developers put in a new housing development and they have to put in a sewage treatment plant, and the politicians go, oh boy, bigger population, more tax base, oh boy, and nobody ever bothers to fund the sewage treatment plant. So you end up with untreated raw sewage going right into a local waterway. And of course, Pete said that in 2 lines, and it's really the strength of the songwriter. And Ray, you are very eloquent in explaining what a songwriter can do, and I love hearing you talk about it.
Well, I guess that's an invitation.
It certainly is.
I think it's the nature of art, and songwriting can do it. So can cartoons. So can some forms of graphic arts, and certainly video and movies and so forth. But from the songwriter perspective, songs do a lot of things to get information to people and to inspire people and to make people stronger. They have a variety of impacts that really are hard to get out of speechifying. For example, I thought one of the really powerful ones in terms of just making people feel stronger themselves was an experience that was told to me by the activist, songwriter, and civil rights, really amazing person that a lot of people in this station are familiar with, Matt Jones. Matt Jones told me that one time he recalls being in a demonstration where the people that he was with were really afraid because they were being surrounded by white police who didn't like them. They were people of color. They were clearly going to be menaced and hurt, and there was really no way out. There was no place to go. So rather than just, do anything else, they started singing, and they started singing, Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around. And Matt said there was such power in the group that you could feel it, and the police could feel it, that somehow the police just kind of moved back instead of moving forward. And Matt believes that people reach another level of consciousness, that somehow the singing erases fear, and that along these lines, music can build community and enable people in suppressed cultures to express themselves in amazingly powerful ways, in ways that can actually sometimes be just as effective in overcoming a threat as anything else they could have done. So that's just one example, and other examples.
Wait a minute! I can't believe you introduced it, because I have something queued up that fits right in with what you were just saying.
Well, there you go.
In 1996, Pete Seeger was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and Harry Belafonte and Arlo Guthrie introduced him. And I have an audio of Harry Belafonte's introduction, and it is incredibly powerful, and it tells another story that fits right in with what you just said.
Well, let's hear Harry.
So let's hear Harry Belafonte. This is just too good. And while you're listening, call 212-209-2950. Become a member of WBAI. And no places have shown up on the board. I have a feeling that there's some sort of tally lag or something. I don't know what's going on. But 212-209-2950. And so here's Harry.
Please welcome Harry Belafonte and Arlo Guthrie.
When I was asked to perform this duty, I found myself being very grateful to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because it meant that someplace in America there would be a standing edifice that would embody a small place in which millions and millions of young people would be able to glean a small bit of truth about a man who is one of the great sons of this great country. America can boast about many of its sons and daughters, but America is truly fortunate to have Pete Seeger. If I were to be given the opportunity to pick the fifth face on Mount Rushmore, I would nominate Pete Seeger. For those of us who have looked upon art as a curious gift, a troublesome gift, an awesome gift, looking for ways in which to be able to turn this gift into some constructive use. Many of us were fortunate that in our lifetime, Pete Seeger lived. This is the second time in a year that I've had the opportunity to share a platform with Pete Seeger in a ceremony that was honoring him. The first was at the lawn of the White House, and President Clinton gave to Pete Seeger the National Medal of Honor for his contributions to America as a great artist and a great citizen. What made that moment so deeply moving and touching was the fact that just a few short decades earlier, this very same America, with men who sat in powerful places, who sought to rob this country of its soul, rob it of its truth, moved about, unimpeded, crushing the lives of thousands of men and women, many of whom were artists. Pete Seeger was one of those, but he stood strong, he stood tall, and those of us who were also victims of that same cruelty could call upon Pete and his strength to find a way to combat this great evil through the use of art and the song. To know how profound that really is, you would have to have walked some of the streets that I have walked. You would have to have been in camps where wars of liberation were being fought by men and women who were seeking to get rid of the heels of oppression, and who could, in so doing, call upon a song to help inspire them to fulfill their great task in overthrowing injustice. When I walk through the Andes of Latin America and South America, in Peru, in Ecuador, in Chile, Pete Seeger has been there. When I've been to the kibbutzim in Israel, when I move among the young settlers in the Negev, the songs they sing tell me that Pete Seeger has been there. Long before I knew who Nelson Mandela was, Pete Seeger brought into the fold of the song a song called Gale, which spoke to the plight of young South Africans seeking to overthrow apartheid. It was Pete and the Weavers who struck a chord in us to help illuminate the way. When we were in Tennessee, struggling to find a way in which to defeat the unjust laws of segregation, one night in Tennessee, waiting for the Ku Klux Klan to descend upon us, Pete Seeger took out his banjo, reached into the recesses of a quiet place, and brought forth a song called We Shall Overcome. Dr. King, sitting there, although the song was part of his racial heritage, did not know it. When he heard Pete sing it, he said, "What a great song for the movement." And that's when We Shall Overcome became the banner for those of us who were in the quest of justice. As I have been about the world, in nations where people have sought to find a place in the sun, when they sing We Shall Overcome, I always think of Pete Seeger. I'm thankful for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because somewhere all this history, all this truth, all this power shall be unfolded to those who will not find much of this truth anyplace else. We are in a dark period. This country is struggling for its soul. It's looking for truth. There are those who would denounce us as artists because we try to go into those places we're told we have no place in politics. When in fact, the only thing that has really and truly inspired the progress of the human race has been culture and art and the song. Thank Pete Seeger, singing Goodnight Irene and helping me to discover Lead Belly, a man who sat down in the heart of Mississippi on the chain gang, giving America some of the greatest songs they've ever heard. I thank Pete Seeger, Say That, that brought to many who were anti-Semitic and inspired them to sing a song that they didn't know where it came from. The two men, Paul Robeson and Pete Seeger. I remember once in a discussion with them, they concluded, and the voice felt this to be the greatest center of my own truth. It says, get them to sing your song, and they will want to know who you are. And if they have made that first step, you can find a solution to hate. I give you my friend and colleague, Arlo Guthrie.
I think Harry just said it all, frankly. I'll just mention this one thing. It's almost 50 years ago now that Goodnight Irene that Pete was shown singing with the Weavers. It's almost 50 years ago that it was on the charts and went to number one. And I can't think of a single event in Pete's life that is probably less important to him. And I think he's still embarrassed by it. And I think that says more about his willingness to be here tonight and who we are. There are a lot of branches to this rock and roll thing, and somewhere in these branches is all these voices singing so many different things. And the one thing that I don't think we should ever forget, and that Pete has reminded me all of my life, is that when we sing together, nobody can take us down as a country and as a people and as friends and families all over the world. And I just thank Pete for that. I love him and I'm proud to induct him into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
And those were the Weavers, and those really high yodeling, that was Pete Seeger. And he was able to hit those notes. And before that was Harry Belafonte and Arlo Guthrie's induction speech to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame from 1996. And when Pete went up to accept his little statue, he just walked on stage and grabbed it and held it aloft and waved and then walked away. He didn't say one word. And I'm thinking, yeah, I guess he figured even he couldn't follow Harry Belafonte after that. My goodness. And We My Way happens to be one of my very favorite Weaver. Well, it is my favorite Weaver song and one of my favorite Pete songs. Though they didn't write it. They discovered it on a phonograph record sometime in the early 50s. and fell in love with it and started to perform it. And so it was the cover from a South African song. And Ray,
Yes.
Thinking about the fact that Pete used to be able to hit notes like that made me think about when he was going to the same voice teacher that you were going to.
Well, that was because he had some problems with his voice at some point, and he called me up to say that he had heard from different people that I knew a vocal teacher that I had gone to, whose name was David Fairchild, and that this vocal teacher was teaching or helping a lot of people who were starring in Broadway shows like Lamanna, Lamanna, and so forth. And so he wanted to see this man if he could. If I thought maybe he could help him because he was losing his voice. So Pete did go, and Pete tried it for a few weeks. But Toshi told me that Pete wouldn't practice at home. So she said that it might have helped him a little bit, but he just continued to go on doing what he was doing, which was kind of straining his vocal cords sometimes when he was singing unnecessarily. Mr. Fairchild told me that he would never want Pete to change how he sounded. He just wanted him to be able to make those sounds without hurting his vocal cords. But it's hard to change when you've been doing something for so many years. But I did want to add something else too that might get lost in the shuffle. Very early on in the program, Donna Stein was talking about the wonderful event that they're planning for this coming Friday night, and she can give the details again, I'm sure, for anybody who missed it. But I just wanted to add that the New York City Friends of Clearwater, which is an organization I'm very happy to be a paid-up member of and on the advisory board of, a wonderful environmental and musical group that is probably very, very close to Pete among the different possible organizations you could find. It has often had him as a guest. It's people from the Friends of Clearwater would go up to Beacon over the years and participate in events up there. And so I think that particular program will be really exceptional because it'll be so warm. So many of those people really had a close connection to Pete and had played those very songs maybe for him that they're going to sing now, the songs that Pete loved so much and helped circulate around the world. So I would highly recommend that and ask Donna when I'm finished with this long speech here to to give the details. The other thing I wanted to mention, though, is that there's going to be another very exceptional program on April 12th at the People's Voice Cafe. Many people know about the People's Voice. It's in the Community Church of New York, which is just a little bit west of, I guess it's Park Avenue, a little bit west of Park Avenue, between Park and Madison, 40 East 35th Street. And you can just go to peoplesvoicecafe.org to find out about that one. And you'll also see
what's
when you
that
go
date
there,
again?
The name is People's Voice Cafe, and the way you find it on the internet is just People's Voice Cafe.
And what's the date of the Pete Seeger?
It's April 12th, and it'll start at 8 o'clock, and it's going to be a wonderful selection of songs that I think everybody involved has had some personal connection with Pete. And it's going to be a big sing-along, and that will be another thing to look out for. But that's the ways away, April 12th. And in fact, the week before that, on April 5th, the Ray Korona Band will be at that same venue.
Oh, well.
So, yeah, check out the People's Voice Cafe, and you'll see about that and many other very, very good programs. But let's hear about this one since it's this coming Friday. If it's okay with you, Ken, maybe Donna could reprise.
Thanks, Ray. And we're continuing to have celebrations of Pete. And by the way, New York City Friends of Clearwater is one of the co-sponsors of People's Voice Cafe, April 12th. I'm proud to be so. This Friday, it may be after some people are listening next week. This Friday, New York City Friends of Clearwater which always meets at Judson Memorial Church on the third Friday. But this Friday will be a celebration of Toshi and Pete Seeger and their life and accomplishments. And it starts at 7.
And give the address.
And I will. It is at 239 Judson in the Assembly Hall downstairs. There will be a line. The Assembly Hall does not hold that many people. We will have a circle of song with fabulous musicians singing Pete's songs. There will be lots of pictures and lots of food. It's a potluck, so please bring food. But we will. We're working it out. We're going to have. There's going to be a line. And we were blessed with good weather that night. I believe it was rain in the morning, but it'll be warm at night. Thankfully, and we'll be entertaining on the line. So even as you're waiting, we're going to have troubadours coming and singing on the line. But we also have. Another event coming up. We haven't solidified the date yet, but it's going to be co-sponsored by Ethical Culture, and that is coming up in March or April. We're not sure.
I love that idea of having the people singing to the folks online.
Yeah,
that just works so well. And I think about the Hudson River Revival, where as you're waiting to come in, there's people singing. So as you're checking in and getting your program book and stuff, there's people singing, and it's always people singing. Yeah, at Pete's funeral, people would just break into song, and it was fascinating because when one person would break into song, then people would come by, and there would be like a half-hour concert. In the middle of the funeral, and it just seemed to be the perfect thing to do.
And we do have to say that we will be singing softly because we don't want to upset our host neighbors. That's just Memorial Church, and we will have giveaway cards for the first 1,000 people that go by. So I just want you to know that there'll be little cards and remembrances of the evening. So
near Washington Square South.
And Washington Square South is where Pete and Toshi first spent their early courtship. They met in square dances. Toshi's family lived in that area. And they would meet, and the legend has it part of their meeting was in Washington Square Park. So you're near a real part of their history. There's a funny story about how Pete couldn't afford a wedding ring, so Toshi chipped in $2 and used her mother's wedding ring, and it's like it says Toshi was supporting Pete right from the beginning.
Yeah, there's a musical power song about Pete Seeger, and she talks about complains about Pete's activism, but her support of it. It's kind of cute. Another wonderful movie, Power of Song. And you're listening to WBAI New York, 99.5 FM and WBAI.org. I'm Ken Gale, and I'm with
Donna Stein from New York City Friends of Clearwater.
And
Ray Korona. By the way, I had another thought to add to what you were saying there about Toshi supporting Pete. As Pete became more and more famous, she became more and more the gatekeeper guarding the telephone so that all these people who would find Pete's number couldn't constantly drain his energy by talking to him and asking him to do things for them to support their causes. So I was practicing with Pete one time in his living room, and we were playing music, and then finally Toshi stuck her head in and said, Peter, which is what she always called him, I have to go out for an hour now. And while I'm gone, if that phone rings, don't you say yes to anybody about anything. And I think that was kind of typical of how they behaved, because as she was walking out, I saw this smile creeping up on Pete's face. He was quiet. You didn't hear a word, but the eyes and that little smile told it all. I knew if that phone rang, Pete was probably not only going to answer it, he was probably going to say yes.
Hey, that reminds me, there's a cute quote from Pete. He says, because Toshi was the managing act, he credits her for making his life and his career happen. Pete says, most men chain their wives to a sink. I've chained mine to a desk as well. And then Judy Collins said, Toshi's been a partner, not a closet partner, but a real partner. The fact that he's on the stage and she isn't doesn't make much difference. That was thank you, Judy Collins.
Yeah.
And this is WBAI, a listener-supported station. One of the last concerts Pete Seeger ever did was for WBAI. And we have a transmitter that we need to pay for. Empire State Building charges us $55,000 a month, and we need your help. This is listener-supported. We don't take corporate underwriting. And I do want to thank a few people. Tony Santiago from the Bronx. Thank you. And there's another one just came in. And then we have...
Keep sending those pledges in, folks.
Erica Stoltz from Brooklyn. Thank you for your donation. And a very nice donation from, yes, we can thank you on the air. Andy Padian. Oh, Andy Padian. I should mention, I know who Andy Padian is because he is one of the foremost, I guess, energy experts in the city. Speaks at rallies and organizes events about saving energy, using less energy, using more sustainable energy. And so that's the kind of people who listen to WBAI. And that's what you are a part of if you become a member of WBAI. Call 212-209-2950 and become a member.
And I'd like to also talk about, you just reminded me about Andy. We have another good friend of New York City Friends of Clearwater and Pete Seeger's, Andy Menkes, just recently passed. And he would have been there playing his guitar and singing with his beautiful voice on Friday. And we want to remember Andy. So please, all friends of Andy Menkes, we need you to call in and support WBAI as well. Andy would be very happy about that.
It's 212-209-2950. This is the kind of information, the kind of music. You know, commercial radio mentioned that Pete Seeger passed away, and they would play 29 seconds of something. Whereas a lot of different shows on WBAI have done tributes to Pete, short ones, long ones, and a very, very special man, involved in so many different issues. I mean, I do an environmental show every other Tuesday, and I'm not just talking about environmental issues because I'm talking about Pete Seeger, and you can't limit yourself to one thing. And so you should limit yourself to one thing either. 212-209-2950. 212-209-2950. $25 for a regular member to WBAI. $150 and you'll get a WBAI t-shirt, a WBAI hat, and a WBAI thumb drive that has hours and hours of programming, stuff from the 60s and from the 70s and more recent material. And it includes Pete Seeger music, and it includes Pete Seeger interviews. And that's for a $150 donation.
I think that people would enjoy hearing about some excerpts from Peter Yarrow's last meeting with Pete in the hospital as Pete was in his last few hours. I'll just read you some excerpts because it's long, and I'll just keep it short. The family and friends were singing "We Shall Overcome." The song was shared close to the end of what was almost an hour and a half of remarkable singing at Pete's bedside. Pete's daughter Tina, Pete's grandson Kitama, other relatives as well as beloved allies and friends, many who worked with Pete for years on the amazing Clearwater sloop effort, sang together. When I had first entered Pete's room, I had quickly unpacked my guitar and then walked for the loveliest songs to be finished by one of Pete's extended family. Then I started to sing a subdued but gently defiant, if that be possible, version of "We Shall Not Be Moved." We all crowded around Pete singing the old Union song together with friends on each side of the bed, holding his hands. We sang that song for perhaps 7 or 8 minutes with many verses about young and old together, black and white together, gay and straight together. The Union is behind us, no more poison fracking, went on and on. Slowly the strength and beauty of the singing began to carry us all. We felt our hearts unite, all of us singing directly to Pete and beginning to ride on the sweetness of the sound we were making together. I'm going to cry. All right. A number of Pete's sloop songs were led by others, and I included "Oh Freedom" down by the riverside, "Talking Union" and "Union Maid." We got most of the lyrics thanks to authors' memories filling in. A memorable version of "Where Have All the Flowers Gone," and even a passionate yet gentle version of "I Had a Hammer." They were talking about what happened in South Africa and how Americans did make a difference by supporting the U.S. boycott of South Africa, and South Africa agreed to release Nelson Mandela, and that was only possible because of the boycott vote over 2 successive vetoes by Reagan. Lots of history. We said to Pete, "See, we are carrying it all in your footprints, dear and beloved Pete, our mentor, our father figure to some like me, though he didn't know it. Our path and brave leader, no easy walk. We sang it, was joyous, still subdued, as was appropriate but passionate. It was a great moment for me. Some of us," this is from Peter Yarrow, "some of us share brief anecdotes with Pete prior to singing the songs. Also, it seemed that Pete was trying to sing along on some tunes, particularly on Woody's 'This Land Is Your Land,' despite the oxygen plastic cup covering his mouth and resting on his neck. When he raised his head and stretched his neck, it looked that way, though he might have just been reaching for my oxygen. I really don't know. But there was no doubt, and it seemed clear that Pete was really listening and enjoying the music lots and lots. As Kitama told me later, Kitama's Pete's one of Pete's grandson, he told people to bring their guitar to the restaurant. He wanted Pete to be surrounded by music in such a circumstance if it was to occur, and for about an hour and a half of true joy and some tears, of course, a great spiritual force filled the room and all our hearts. Some of us said, "I love you" to Pete, as did when I kissed his forehead. "You've been my inspiration my whole life." Pete would have been shy to acknowledge it, that there are thousands, as Mary called our trio Seeger's Raiders, who will carry on with Pete in their hearts, sharing his great gift of his music, his truly giving, uncompromising, pure spirit, still resonating within us all. As Arlo has so aptly said to Pete in his imagined conversation, "See you soon." And indeed I do, and shall for the rest of my life. Thank you, Peter Yarrow.
Hard to follow that, so I'm going to follow it with something that his grandson wrote. There has been a lot of conversation about whether the Tappan Zee Bridge should be named after Pete Seeger or not.
Boo.
And a lot of people are against it. A lot of people are for it. I became for it when somebody suggested the name Pete Seeger Causeway. That name I like. But I'm going to read what his grandson wrote. Now, this is not an actual conversation with Pete. This is sort of an imagined conversation. I think that's why Donna is going boo. But I am Pete's grandson. For everyone who says Pete would hate the idea of naming a bridge after him, I think I should provide insight into Grandpa's thought process. Grandpa, what do you think of the new Tappan Zee Bridge being named after you? There are lots of great people to name things after. Why me? Because if they name it after you, then people of all races and socioeconomic backgrounds will be reminded every day that they need to continue fighting for a better world as they sit in traffic. Well, I do love bridges. I have spent the past 60 years looking at 2 bridges right from my porch. Bridges are essential, built by geniuses. Also, the Tappan Zee goes right to Nyack. That is the only time when I lived with both of my parents, and it was only 2 years. But some people say you would hate it. Hate it. I hate injustice. I hate dishonesty. I hate greed. Those are things worth hating. And it's interesting the passion that has engendered, because on one of the Indian Point E-lists, people were arguing about whether he would have been absolutely against it or not.
Oh, this is on one of my kayak e-lists also. I mean, people are just debating it back and forth, and it's like what Pete did not want to do was be held above everybody. So, and as my friend Marilyn said, it's like it carries fossil fuel vehicles. Mm-hmm. It's not going to last very long. It's 50 years maybe. It puts him above everybody. It's not the best things. Another. If you name something, don't give him a statue. Give him name a children's program after Pete. Something that is what he stands for. All right. Although Evan Pritchard, a great guy and friend of Pete's, and
he was on Ecologic years ago.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
And fights for indigenous rights, like Pete does and like I do. And we can talk about the Churro Wampum group in a minute. But he said that if you can make the stanchions of the and this is a technology that is being worked on. If you make the stanchions of the bridge to have the river that runs both ways to run by and create energy and make fossil fuel and nuclear obsolete, that may be a good use of naming a bridge after Pete. But it has to be that huge technology to happen. And that would be wonderful. But just to have a bridge named after Pete,
a causeway.
A causeway. Well, let's do a section of the highway then or something.
Anyway, we are running out of time.
Oh, no.
And Ray, you have anything to add to all this?
Well, I'll try to do it
Ray
quickly
Korona.
then. Yes, I think that Pete loved his family very much, and he would very much want to please people like his grandchildren and so forth, and accede to their wishes, and so would anybody else who cared about the whole family. But at the same time, I think that this is really so public and so much a statement that it's important to consider the things that Donna just said. So my own feeling would be that Pete would find a way of compromising this. And I think one way of doing it would be to, in order to really bring everybody in. And I think one way of doing it would be to call it the People's Causeway. And then perhaps under that to say something about Pete, to say some really apt statement about Pete and his struggles and his environmentalism. I think he would be okay with that, and I think the family would probably be okay with that too. And I think most people would recognize that that's kind of real, the way most of our community sees Pete, I think, is not somebody who wants his name above everybody else. And so that would be my position on it. I think as far as the fossil fuels and all that goes, that hopefully that Pete would see that as time goes by, those things will be addressed and corrected, and he'd be optimistic that whatever was using the bridge wouldn't.
He was a great optimist.
Yeah, wouldn't be something terrible, and that maybe the bridge itself would stand, and the idea of a People's Causeway would stand the test of whatever the bridge is used for in the future. So that would be my way of looking at it.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah. And he really was the most complete optimist. He really believed in the power of humankind to overcome corporate greed. It took some work, and there's some going back and forth, but it can happen. Please call that Pets line. We only have a few more minutes. 212-209-2950. We need your calls. We need to support Ecologic. We need to support Pete Seeger. Please do.
212-209-2950. 212-209-2950.
And just a quick mention, since I already said it briefly. Pete got me involved in the two-row wampum paddle down the river this season. And
now you have to explain what two-row wampum paddle is.
Two-row wampum is all about the fight for indigenous rights. It is the 400-year history of the treaty between the Haudenosaunee people, the Iroquois Nation, and the early Dutch settlers, and all treaties written after that point were based upon the two-row wampum. And we went down the river this summer with two rows, one of native, one of non-native. And Chief Jake Edwards and Chief Orrin Lyons were there, and Pete was so happy. We had this in every place we stopped along the river. They had commemorations and electeds and native dancing, and it was the most life-changing experience. And in Beacon, we had thousands of people greeting us as we paddled to the shore. It was life-changing, and there was we hear in the distance, Pete wants a kayak on the stage, which was a mound of dirt with all the Rivertown kids singing and everybody else singing. And so I said, okay, well, you have to bring my boat, because I had it festooned with little posters and so on. Anyway, two-row wampum was near and dear to indigenous rights. Social justice was near and dear to Pete. So we sang, we had a wonderful time, and it was great. So.
And one of the things that I want to, I almost feel like I have to end this show with Pete Seeger and Arlo Guthrie singing "This Land Is Your Land." And almost every Clearwater meeting ends with that song, and so many gatherings that I've been to, even if Pete wasn't there, we would end with "This Land Is Your Land," almost as if Pete was sort of conducting the audience. And Tiogasin Ghost Horse was forced to sing that song when he was a boy in a quote-unquote Indian school, and they managed to make that song a song of oppression. And it bothers me so much that they managed to take a song that's as much about freedom as that song and turn it against itself. And Ray, you have some very interesting comments to make about that. And so before we go into one final pitch and then that song, sort of introduce us to "This Land Is Your Land."
Well, what I had found is that it was offensive to some people of Native American descent, or that they felt that it was an imperialistic song, or that it was a song about ownership of land, which was a concept that many of the tribes did not subscribe to. And I also saw that people were trying to rewrite, to put some verse in there that would kind of convey that that's not what this is really meant to be about. And it certainly wasn't meant to be about that. It was meant to be that the song belonged to the people, not to or the country belonged to the people, not the politicians and rulers or the guys with all the money. So I did come up with a verse which I'm finding people are picking up on, that I think kind of says that in a soft way. It says, "I want to be sure you understand. We come to share, not own the land. Every creed and color, every woman and man, this land belongs to you and me." To kind of cover the bases that's where we're at on this. We want to share, and it's not about ownership, and we want to share with everybody. So I hope that that's really the feeling most people get when they hear it. I think most of the time when I hear it sung, that's what most of the room feels. The only thing you had to watch out with Pete is if you were singing that song with him and you had your band on the stage backing him up, he might turn to one side and say, key of G, and then he would turn to the other side and say E, in which case In which case I would have to, as the band leader of my band, scramble behind his back and say, E, E, and then we would all sing it together.
So if you're on stage with him, he's conducting you as well.
Well, he would get this idea, and sometimes he didn't quite remember, I guess, what he told one side of the room. But we had a real good time singing it with him so many times, and he certainly put so much heart and energy into it that it was real hard when you heard him sing it not to be moved and feel good.
And watching the footage of Bruce Springsteen and Pete and all those other people singing it at Obama's inauguration, and seeing the smile on Pete's face when they get to the verse about no trespassing.
Amazing.
And I'm thinking, one is Obama is so much the friend of corporations, and here's that verse coming in. And if you don't know the verse, you'll hear it in a minute. And the other thing, of course, is that Pete was blacklisted. He was brought up for contempt of Congress, and it took them 6 years to finally say, okay, you didn't do anything bad. And it was crazy. Pat Lamanna talked about that on last week's show. And
sometimes you see private property, and the truth is there's no definitive version.
Right.
What happened is Woody Guthrie would keep he didn't have a copier with him, and so he would write the song out all the time and give it to people. And there's so many variations of it that nobody knows what the real final perfect version is of This Land Is Your Land, and I think Pete would have loved that too.
Yeah, there's no original version, there's no final version, there's just versions. And I remember hearing on the other, the sign said private property, the other side didn't say nothing. And lately, everybody's doing the no trespassing. I'm wondering when did that change? When the more popular version here in the Northeast went from one to the other. But that's folk music.
I liked it when Arlo sang the private property verse at the Lincoln Center time when they honored Pete Seeger, and the President of the United States sat in the audience.
There's some great stuff, and we're coming to the very end of the show. So call 212-209-2950, 212-209-2950.
And remember, the Internet is under attack, and there also are lots of ways that servers can block sites. There are lots of ways that things can be messed with. We can't rely on just one source of information. If we give up WBAI now, and if we give up programs like Ecologic, where Ken and his associates find all sorts of important stories and bring them to us from all over the world, we're going to give up way too much. We're going to be in deep trouble. So we absolutely need this in addition to whatever we get online to make our stand.
If BAI is gone, it's gone forever. We don't have a voice anymore. We have to have the voice of WBAI. Please give your pledges. 212-209-2950. Pete would be very happy if you did. I know that.
212-209-2950. Ray's point is very well made. You can't rely on the Internet. They're going after it. They want to control it. They want to control how you get information, if you can get information, what sites you get to see. That means what music you get to listen to, what Internet radio stations you get to listen to. So broadcast radio might be the where we have to go for information. We may be stuck with it. And it's interesting. I realize that 20% of the people listening right now are listening to WBAI on things other than radios, and maybe it might be 25% by now. But the point is 75-80% still are listening on the radio, and it's very important that broadcast radio exists for the people. And so now let's go out with This Land Is Your Land by Arlo Guthrie and Pete Seeger from quite some time ago. And thank you, Ray Korona. Thank you, Donna Stein. And thank you, Charlie King, for the first hour. And I'm Ken Gale. Hi, I'm Ken Gale, WBAI's Tuesday evening environmental show Ecologic. One of the cool things about being a BAI buddy is that you get to decide what WBAI is worth to you. Are we worth more than your cable TV? Or $10 a month? 20, 100, a million? Just go to the WBAI.org website and sign up with your credit card. You'll barely notice it. In return, you get a WBAI tote bag to show off, free or discounted entry to special WBAI events, and other perks. Another cool thing about being a BAI buddy is less fundraising interruptions to your favorite programs. Go to WBAI.org. You can donate in the name of your favorite show, like Ecologic.